bread is never Beyoncé. It is Kelly Rowland at best, right? And that is the purpose of bread, right?
How do you kind of navigate that landscape? Making sure that you're transparent and your readers trust what you're saying.
If restaurant critics are there to make restaurants better, chefs and restaurants and hospitality companies and PRs, etc., also have to be there to make us better too.
And Liam is like our number one fan of Nourish.
Yes.
That comes to collect my award, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
We've got it for you, Track. I hope you polished it.
I have a Google Docs that I can show you of like funny things to say one day. And then when I get to a restaurant, I go, oh, that's that one. I'll take that one off the shelf. Like that.
Welcome to Nourish by Spinneys, our award-winning podcast that brings you conversations to inspire you to eat well and live well. I'm Tiffany Eslick.
And I'm Devina Divecha. We're continuing our conversations with leading players in the food community, from farmers to foodies, as well as health and well-being experts. And we're back in one of our favorite locations, I think, of the season, which is Alserkal Avenue. And this time we're inside Piehaus, which is the newest concept to come out of the 21 grams stable. And Tiff, you spoke to its founder, Stasha, in the first season, I think.
Yes, she was one of our first guests on the podcast. She's a dear friend of mine, and what she's done in the food scene here is incredible.
Yeah.
She's always so authentic. Her restaurants are filled with great design, amazing homey food that just keeps bringing you back for more. I think I crave like her chicken liver pate from 21 grams. And now at Piehaus, there's a couple of pies that I just wake up thinking, I feel like that this weekend for breakfast. Yeah. So Liam Collens joined us at Piehaus. He's also a huge fan of Stasha and 21 grams and anything that she does. So Liam is a lawyer by day, or actually a general counsel. He has a very important job. And he is a food writer and food critic by night. Interestingly, his Instagram used to be Eat Go See, but everyone thought it was Eat Goose. So that's a bit of an inside joke that I have with Liam. And my nickname for him.
But he's also our number one fan of the podcast. He listens to it very regularly, which is so nice. And we wanted to get his thoughts about the Dubai food scene, what's happening at the moment, how he balances writing with his, as you say, very important job and career, with fatherhood.
He's also the self-appointed number one fan of 21 grams. So it should come as no surprise that he chose Piehaus as the location where he wanted to do our interview.
I think the thing that 21 grams for me stands for, and Stasha, and because she was I think she's the chief soul officer or something like that. That's her job description, which is great, and all restaurants should have that. There's a sense of sincerity about 21 grams, which for me stands out head and shoulders above other restaurants in Dubai. So when you go, the team are warm. There's a sort of familial, friendly type atmosphere that's there. And capturing that kind of lightning in a bottle is something that's exceptionally difficult, but they do very, very naturally, and they do very, very well. And I think it speaks to what true hospitality is about. I mean, if you think about in your daily life, you might forget what happened in a meeting or what was said.
Yeah.
But you don't forget how people make you feel.
Yeah.
And so you may not remember what you ate at 21 grams or things like that, but you will walk out of it and go, I feel loved, I feel warm, I feel welcomed, the people are so nice, all this. And people come back to that. I think particularly in a country and in a place where most people are living outside of their home country. And so to be able to go to a place that feels like a sanctuary, that feels familiar and a refuge is really the backbone of 21 grams. Food's also pretty good. That helps. I'm 2 parts like honey, goat cheese, phyllo pie at any given time. So yeah, that's it. But I think it's that first bit first, and then everything out sort of radiates out from that.
Yeah.
You talked about feeling warm, and obviously we're in a place where, like you say, it's not our home country, but what are you looking for apart from maybe warmth when you go out to these restaurants? What is it that gives you value in actually kind of saying, I'm going to sit here, spend my time, spend my money, and eat this food and enjoy it?
Not all restaurants are made for all occasions, right? So there are some places where once you do a lot of food writing, people come to you and go, where's the best restaurant in Dubai? And you kind of, your eye sort of rolls a little bit at that question, but there's...
a little bit?
a little bit.
Let's just scratch that question off.
So really not all restaurants are made for all occasions. So there are some places where I go, this is a corporate expense type place. This is the place someone's going for their anniversary. This is the place where I can go to on my own, and maybe I want to do some work and I've got my laptop and those sorts of things. So value is really about occasion, what it is that you're trying to get out of it. And so I think for us as food critics and food writers, we're typically looking across a number of different verticals. So price is a very obvious one. Price is very sensitive these days in Dubai as well too. People are really feeling, I think, the pressure when it comes to pricing. Also, the ambience, where is the location? Is this a place where I can bring my spouse? Is it a place where I can bring my work colleagues? What's the menu variation like? Is it vegetarian friendly? Is it gluten friendly? All these other sorts of things. Is it a sharing concept? Is it much more kind of siloed? So this, that is a bit of a Rubik's Cube that you have to not look at all restaurants the same, but you have to kind of look at the contemporaries side by side.
Yeah, I think that's why, I'm sure you get this as well, Tiff. I'm sure all of us do. You get that question, like you said, what's your favorite restaurant? And I just think, for what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And when I do restaurant reviews, that I think there's two key questions that I ask at the end, and one is, will I come back here?
Yeah.
I find that very grounding and very centering. Like, why would I come back here, and in which circumstances, and if at all? Because there's some places where I wouldn't. But then the other question that I ask afterwards is, who should come here?
Yeah.
Right. And that's also very different. There's a dichotomy in Dubai between, let's say, residents and tourists. Right. So maybe this is more of a tourist place. And so if you're in Dubai and you've only got 4 days or something like that, this should be in your list of places to come to within the first 4 days. If you're a resident, you've kind of seen it all, and you've ridden the wave of Greek and Peruvian and burgers and everything else, and you're looking for something different outside of that kind of belt of restaurants that happens. Here's something that's disruptive. Here's something that's different. Or maybe you do like, I don't know, Japanese food, but this is at a more accessible price point, or it's a little bit more niche. And so it's offering something that's differentiated versus the cohort.
The usual, yeah.
And with the scene like rapidly evolving, I think 2 years ago, I thought it was rapidly evolving, and now it's just on steroids. As a critic, but also a consumer, what are you seeing as the opportunities and the challenges with this evolving scene?
I think historically, there's been a concentration of restaurants in Dubai in a couple of places. And cynically, I think that's because maybe that's where the hotels were. Maybe it had to do with licensing laws as well, right? In that sense. So there was these obvious kind of nodes. And if you're a business, look, you have to make business decisions, and you say, okay, restaurants are opening here, so here too I shall go, right? But what's happening is that Dubai is expanding, and there's an ambition in Dubai to move out and move into areas like Dubai South and things like that. So the thing that I keep telling restaurateurs is, stop opening restaurants in DIFC, stop opening restaurants in, the marina and all these other sorts of areas. They are very well serviced as locations in Dubai. You need to be moving out to that stretch between Al Khail Road and heading out towards Al Qudra and Dubai South. There's got to be hundreds of thousands of people who live there, right? And there's villas. And I live out there. And to be candid with you, there's kind of two places to go, in my opinion. One of them is Dubai Hills Business Park, and there's a number of restaurants out there that are doing very well, and low. After that, it is quite literally a desert. If you want to open up somewhere like this, like Piehaus, that kind of does handhelds and grab and goes and things like that, there's lots of people with families who want these kinds of easy access, interesting restaurants, interesting concepts, and they don't want to have to drive out in order to get it and spend 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour in traffic here in Dubai, and I understand for chefs that they want to look, Farley, he's got most of his restaurants kind of within 1 kilometer of each other, right? That from an owner perspective, there's a lot of efficiency and control in that, right? And that's a really good thing. But guys, start looking out, because the rest of us are out here, and you're leaving money on the table.
And a lot of spending power, because that's the thing.
I think when people have asked me to, go down to the marina or JBR on a Friday night, I just laugh.
Yes.
No.
Clutching pearls, and they're like wrapped up in a blanket at home.
Something like that. Something like that. I would, no, absolutely not. But so that makes complete sense, because we live, like you and I, Tiff, live in a part where, we're surrounded by a lot of restaurants, but, my family lives, out like towards the desert, I guess. And you need more restaurants there. Like, what are you going to do?
Absolutely. I think they want to interrupt us now.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes.
Let's do this. This is where we cut.
Yes, so that we can feed our guests.
This is great.
For one of my birthdays, Stasha pitched up with like boxes and boxes of all the different pies, like the cherry one, the goat cheese one, the mince one. It was the best present ever.
They catered my son's first birthday.
Oh, cool. On this, his son sounds like the next growing food connoisseur. His first bite of potato was first bite ever? Was it?
We went to the Sunday lunch at Dinner by Heston, and this is when Tom was there, and one of the courses that comes out is like the perfect crispy roast potato. It's got like a quenelle of caviar over the top, and Rufus is my son. Rufus was looking at it with kind of interest, and I was like, does he want solids? He wants solids. This looks great. And so obviously he's like a 4-month-old baby at this point, so I just sort of like broke up the potato, and Tom was there next to me, put a bit of caviar on it, and kind of put it on my finger and then put it in his mouth. And he was like, nom, nom. His eyes kind of lit up. And I looked at Tom and went, listen, I know you have a star, but this is kind of a big deal. Like if you can convert a 4-month-old onto solid food and caviar.
With caviar.
That's it.
Yeah.
Annoyingly, he won't eat anything since. That's it. Like, we haven't been able to feed him formula for years.
That is the only thing he wants.
He's on a neat diet of caviar. It's very expensive. People say kids are expensive. It's true.
Yeah. Explains why you're working so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to keep my son in a life that he deserves.
Oh my God.
How do you balance like being this hotshot general counsel lawyer extraordinaire and doing all your beautiful food writing and being active in the food scene?
I know people talk about this all the time, prioritization, but it really is about prioritization. The thing that pays my rent and the thing that covers my family is my job, right? So that is number one. Outside of that, everything else I do is very much sort of passion, hobby. This is the kind of stuff I love. You do find little tricks. So when I'm driving to and from work, if I've been to a restaurant, I will dictate it into Apple voice memos. There's a transcript that's built in the transcript. I then copy that out, put it into Google Docs or something like that, and then do some editing. But just generally trying to find those, how do I use the time really well? And also, I think I've decided, to not feel constrained by the tyranny of you have to post every week. It has to be on a certain day. It must be at a certain time. Like, there is a kind of draconian attitude, I think, among publishers or writers or that stuff, that it has to be done like this, and the consistency, and that's really important when you're building these things. But I can't commit to that. I'd rather put things out. And I was actually talking to Samantha Wood about this once, and her advice was gold. And she was saying to me that it's better to put something out when it's worth putting out than be feel beholden to having put something out on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. And I was like, yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, that really is.
Since we're talking about writing, we got to talk about bread. I have a picture from last week that I took just for you because I was like, this is a bread course. I'm taking a photo.
I get tagged. I get tagged in people's tasting menus when bread turns up now. It's become a thing.
It has become a thing.
Let's tag me on bread. It's fine.
Let's just tell our listeners a little bit about bread in case they haven't read your fabulous post about this.
Look, I'm a man that loves bread, right?
Sure.
This is not the body of a man that doesn't like bread.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
So I'm a bread eater. My feeling about bread is that, and very specifically in the context of a tasting menu, bread is not a course, right? Stop giving us bread as a course. Why do I feel this way? Bread is a side. It can be on the side.
Yeah.
It is not, bread is never Beyoncé. It is Kelly Rowland at best, right? And that is the purpose of bread, right? From my perspective. And really it's kind of a value proposition point. If you are paying, look, tasting menus in this city are like 2,000 dirhams, right? They're 1,500 dirhams, that sort of stuff. And so if you've got 10 courses and it's 1,500 dirhams, that one course is 150 dirhams. I've never had a 150 dirham mouthful of bread, right? So that's the value point. The next point is I've never eaten a piece of bread during a tasting menu where I thought, you know what? Really glad that wasn't a lovely piece of trout, right? And I'm not poo-pooing pastry chefs and people who work with bread. That's artisanal. You won't get a tasty piece of bread from my hands, right? That I would make, but it just doesn't deserve to be on a tasting menu. And that's my really hard view of it.
Yeah. What do you think, Tiff?
Yeah, I agree. I think
yes. Yeah.
The closest I've ever come to being okay with it was at in Italy this year at the Como property. I ate at a Michelin restaurant there.
Yeah.
And Castello di Nero, Como Castello di Nero. The bread was, first of all, I got an entire bakery delivered to my table just for one.
This is value.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, this can count as a course. And there were lots of accoutrements,
Nice,
And so I thought, and so that's the only one that's allowed to get away with it.
I was at dinner with Courtney on Sunday and bread, sort of a batura turned up as a part of the menu. And I sort of looked at it and she looked at me and burst out laughing. And she was like, I'm going to take a picture. I was like, please don't.
It's your thing now. I'm
sorry. It's my thing now. Yeah. No bread. Team no bread.
What restaurants are you wanting to go to at the moment from the new openings? Is there anything that's kind of on your list?
Yeah. So it's timely that we're now Circle. So I think Middle Child is probably my very, very high on my list. There's the One Life that's opened up next door as well. That's quite high on my list. I would say I also want to, there's some places that I miss the openings for. So places like Birch and Floor and things like that, I've heard very good things about. And so I've not had the opportunity to go there largely because they're in further away parts of town. I think the thing for me though is I've spent a large part of 2025 thinking about what are the sorts of things that I want to write about. And there are things that as a writer, to be honest, from an SEO perspective, you write about because it's timely, it's a hot thing right now, people are going to read it, and it's good to get an opinion out there and that sort of stuff. But then what do you do once you have those number of readers and followers? And there's places that I want to go to where I'm going, these places don't have PR teams, right? Or these places have been around for a really long time, lest we forget. And so, for example, I think the most popular restaurant review I've written this year is about sticky rice, right? In JVC. Sticky rice is an institution, right? It's been around for a really long time. And I think Dubai is a place where culturally we get a bit caught up in the latest hot new thing, right? And so let's go to that place, let's do that. People want to go to this opening, Atlantis the Royal. And those places have a drumbeat of PRs that are there to celebrate them. What about these other places that don't, are probably very affordable, are probably doing really good food, maybe even better. And those places deserve spotlight and shine as well too.
Oh, I look forward to a whole stack of new things to read.
Yeah. I think Karama and Satwa are they're old neighborhoods. Restaurants have been there for a very long time, longer than I've lived here in Dubai. People don't talk about them. My peers don't talk about them, right? And so my interest now is how do I pivot to those kinds of locations in order to put a spotlight on places that are very, we were just talking about Calicut Paragon before we started recording, but places like that, there are a lot of places where people already know they're very busy and they're very well known, but they're not very well known by a certain slice of Dubai. And it's like, hey, have you thought about going down to Karama today? You will have a good, there's some delicious restaurants there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and with that, when you mentioned like the hot new places or everyone's going to a particular spot, there's obviously, with those that come like PR teams, press trips, there's obviously that influencer culture that, we see as well. So in light of all of that does happen in the industry, as a writer and a reviewer, trust with your readers is so important. How do you kind of navigate that landscape, making sure that you're transparent and your readers trust what you're saying?
The way that I think about it is, so why do I do this in the first place, right? So I've got quite a busy job. I've got other things to do. I've got a family, general adulting, right?
A renovation.
Renovations, the list goes on, right? Here I am toiling away over 800 words over, why you shouldn't eat bread. That's and I think for me, it's more about why am I kind of doing this in the first place? And the reason that I got into food criticism and food writing is that I didn't think there were many of the kinds of voices that I was looking for. I was very accustomed to reading that kind of British style of restaurant critic, like a Jay Rayner, like an A.A. Gill, bless him, like all these sorts of things where there's wit and it's funny, but there's someone has spent 800 words to make you decide, is it worth you getting in the Kareem, spending 30 minutes in a taxi, putting on high heels, like all this sort of stuff to then sit down in a restaurant, like is it worth it? And I think the gap that has opened up in the market is that long form restaurant criticism is kind of dying, right? In that sense. And what's filling its space is PR and influencers, right? And that has a value, but that value, to be clear, is not a value that serves the customer. It's a value that serves the brand, right? And it's a value that serves the PR company and the clients, right? And so who is the advocate for the reader, for the customer that has to go in and hand over them hard-earned money in order to decide whether or not this place is worth it or not. And so I think now more than ever, restaurant criticism is more valuable than before because of the face of PRs and food influencers, right? To your question about how do you earn trust with your readers, I think you just have to be as transparent with them as you can, and there's a challenge in that in Dubai, which I'll come to in a bit. But I do accept restaurant invites to restaurants, but I will also tell the reader that this is an invite. By the way, I haven't paid a thing. That stuff, or and this is what it costs, and also you have to then decide how far you're going to kind of step into the void with this. Now, with me, I'm very happy to talk about places. Like, look, guys, I know that people here have paid for me to come, but I don't think you should come. Right? That's and that you have to be prepared to torture a relationship in order to do that. Right? But I think that's the job. Your loyalty is to the reader. It's not to the brand or the people who've been getting you there. The difficulty that we have in Dubai as writers is that there's a certain limited elasticity to how much you can criticize, right? And you have to be very kind of cognizant of that. And the way that I think you find the balance is you have to leave the reader with an impression. You have to give them enough information for them to make their own informed decision, whether you're invited or not, right? And I think that sensible writers here in Dubai will provide the more cutting feedback privately, one-to-one, off the page, right? That sort of a stuff. And it's in service to the restaurant. And I think I don't think restaurants here appreciate the value of having a restaurant critic who can come in and give them a perspective. And I think the restaurants that do the best here are the ones who seek that out. People like Himanshu, for example, at Treasure Studio. I've sat with Himanshu for hours after dinner and we have cut it up about individual courses and whether this makes sense and the flow and all those other sorts of things. And to me, it's no mistake that someone who has that absolute thirsty interest to understand how they can do better is one of is one of the 2-3 Michelin-starred restaurants in the country.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that's it, right? And so in there, I think lies the secret.
Yeah, I've only found a handful of chefs and PR people who actively ask me for real feedback, and with some I've gone down to saying that plate didn't work and this is why for that course, and they're like, yeah, okay, fine, like I understand now. And it's really nice that we're able to have like those constructive conversations. Off the page is fine, but not everyone, like you say, they want to say, oh, like it was good. Yeah. Okay. Did you post a photo? Okay, great. And I'm like, oh, okay.
And those are food influencers. And to be clear, food influencers have value. There are restaurants where they owe their existence and they owe their popularity, and that's fine. But to be clear, that's advertising, right? So that's and if you need someone to come in to promote your restaurant, here's a list of food influencers, right? Go ahead. There is value in that. But if you want someone who's going to sit there and tell you, listen, I'm not going to come back here because the place 5 minutes away is doing it at this price or that or this kind of. So actually, I ate at this place last week, and maybe you should borrow something like this as well too, because we as writers eat in more restaurants than chefs do. Chefs are in their restaurants 14, 16 hours a day. Less than it's tough, right? That's but we're kind of more lateral. I also think fair is fair, and I always say this: fair is fair. So if you are going to set up a website or create a Substack or put on an Instagram account or TikTok or whatever it is these days, and you're going to talk about a restaurant and you're going to put an opinion out there, be prepared to have it back, right? Like that. And I've had a couple of chefs write to me and go, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, you got this wrong. That's and I'm like, you know what? Fair. Right? Because if I got it wrong, I got it wrong. Right? And I have no problem with that whatsoever. That's absolutely fine. So if you're going to dish it out, you have to be able to take it. And I think in the same spirit of, if restaurant critics are there to make restaurants better, chefs and restaurants and hospitality companies and PRs, etc., also have to be there to make us better too. And so there has to be that kind of, professional understanding that that's what this is about. So that's absolutely fine.
I mean, as a writer, I look at your writing and I am truly inspired by the way that you write.
Thank you.
And
nice.
There are very few writers who can actually make me laugh and make me think in the food writing world. And I wanted to know, like, what is your process when you're sitting down? Like, because like some of the metaphors or the wit that you come up with, I think, did he think about this before? And has he been wanting to put that in? Like, when you're driving, do you think of like a little note? And then, like, what is your whole process for a review?
Okay, so when it comes to like the witty barbs and things like that, there's one or two. Sometimes I'm walking around and something like that, and I think, oh, that would be a funny line to use one day. And I have a Google Docs that I can show you of like funny things to say one day. Right? And then when I get to a restaurant, I go, oh, that's that one. I'll take that one off the shelf. Like that stuff. This is the one that fits. But sometimes you're in a restaurant and it sort of comes to you, right? That kind of thing. I think the thing that's really important as well is that read other people's writing, right? And understand, like, why do I like this? And approach it in a very critical way. So you can't just say the food is yummy or things like that. You have to kind of use more expository wording. Say like, what was the temperature like? What was the taste like? You give people an analogy that they can relate to, like that sort of, and you're just constantly trying to dimensionalize what the experience is for people. That's largely the process.
Yeah, I really, really enjoy your writing.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
Yeah. And a lot of it is long form as well. Is that is that harder, do you think, to keep people's attention with that? Is there still a space for that style of writing at the moment?
Yes. So what I find, and it's yes, and I'll answer it this way. I think there's kind of two forms. The most popular form of long form writing right now is listicles, right? And when I look at my Google Analytics, for example, the thing that drives traffic to my website is listicles, right?
Okay.
And actually, it's long form. It's 4,000 words. It's 5,000 words listicles, right? In that sense, so people do have the time to read it. It's just, are you giving them what it is that they want to read in sort of bite-sized morsels, right? Like in that, so that they can then understand. I also think when it comes to long form writing, there's probably a more obvious value, and that is, and this is just my impression, is that the other articles that do well on my website tend to be the ones where people are going to pay more money. And so I think if you're someone who's going, hey, it's my 10th wedding anniversary, I want to take my partner out. I've looked at FZN, for example, at Atlantis. Wow, it's 2,000 dirhams a person before we even, start talking about anything else in the menu and that sort of stuff. Is this really worth it? People are going to read around that kind of decision. That's not I saw like a 7-second video of this. And
oh gosh, yeah. I actually read your piece on Guggen because I went there a month back and I paid for it. So I was like, this is a hefty amount of money. Like, let me read something. And I was like, oh, okay, you've written about it. So I read it like thoroughly and I said, okay, fine, I'll give them my money. Yes.
Yeah. So I think the more money you outlay for these sorts of things, you can generally see that trend where people are more into, because I think they're more conscious of what they're handing over. I think on your more day-to-day stuff, again, social media is kind of filling that space, and that's what writers are competing against in the attention economy.
Your background is so interesting. You come from Trinidad, the UK, and here. Has that played a part in like shaping your palate, having this kind of diverse background?
I've been kind of thinking about that. So coming from Trinidad and Tobago, it's a real melting pot, a bit like Dubai, but in a sort of different way. And that is, you've got these this kind of colonial influence that comes in. So there's a lot of Spanish, French, British, Portuguese type influence that still exists in Trinidad that's very much on the plates and available in restaurants everywhere. There was a lot of slavery that came over from Africa. And so there's this African sort of diaspora that's there, and there's a lot of food. And by Africa, I really mean, because Africa's a big place, it's really West Africa, right? So you can still see a lot of that. The way that people cook, that style of cooking, the ingredients that are used, the type of dishes that are there, things like that, which still resonate in society today. And then there was a very large pre-partition Indian population that came over, in the hundreds of thousands. And so Trinidad today is about, let's say, 40% ancestral African, 40% ancestral pre-partition Indian. And then the difference in between are people like... there's not a large, but there's, I would say, an influential Syrian and Lebanese population that's in Trinidad too. And that's largely through trade and commerce that had come through, right, through colonialism. And so I would wake up in the morning and we would eat doubles, right, for breakfast, which is chole bhatura, right? It's a derivative of chole bhatura. And that is practically the national breakfast dish. And people will fight over who has the best doubles, man.
Oh my God, I love it when you do that.
like that sort of stuff, right? Like people, like, this is like tightly held secrets, or like chest beating, like, no, mine is the best, and like all this stuff. And so that was kind of, and in Trinidad we have a saying that if you can stew it, curry it, or fry it, then it's food, right? Now you name something that you can't stew, curry, or fry, right? And so pretty much everything therefore becomes food, right? So we've got this very kind of broad, democratized attitude as to what's food and what's edible. Then I moved to the UK, which was, I would say, was moving through that pivot where people used to joke that in order to eat well in the UK, you would eat breakfast 3 times a day, right? That stuff. And then after that, it was like a wasteland. But it was at the time when, Jamie Oliver and Gordon Ramsay and Gary Rhodes, I would say in particular, especially in my household, were, I think, driving this kind of new British culture, a little bit like what Noma, etc., done in the Nordics. I think these guys were really pioneering in England and make British food great again, right? In that sense. And also, and a big difference I'd say about Britain versus maybe the rest of Europe, broadly speaking, is that when I go to Italy, I love Italy. It's wonderful. France, I love it. Portugal, I love it. It's wonderful. Food is wonderful. But they don't really look outside their own cuisine or even their own region, right, in that sense. Whereas England is much more, I don't know, maybe people did a lot of gap years and they've been to Thailand, but then they come back and they go, you have excellent Thai restaurants. I would say some of the best Italian restaurants are not in Italy. They're actually in Britain. And so that kind of diversity, I think, has really helped as well too, and it, I think, gave me a new language in which to appreciate food. And I think I discovered fine dining, which is something that we don't have, or at least at the time that I lived there, we didn't have in Trinidad. So that very much kind of changed. And then coming to Dubai, the two things I've kind of taken away from Dubai cuisine wise is, one, Japanese food. Something that, I didn't, for one reason or another, didn't really understand or hadn't really approached too much before. And then I think the regionality of Indian food here. If you want to eat Indian food in Dubai, or if you want to eat Indian food well, come to Dubai in that sense, because you can get that very regional representation without having to go to India, right? And I hadn't I hadn't appreciated that. And I think phrases like Indian food, for example, is like calling it European food or Latin American food. That's kind of blithe to the nuance. And you can really appreciate that here just by eating around.
Yeah, even with that, it's just like you say, people ask me for Indian restaurant recommendations. I'm like, north, south,
seafood,
east, west,
rice,
veg,
bread. Like, what do you want? Yeah, if I go into a restaurant and I see Aleppi curry and I don't know, biryani or something, like some of it, like, okay, I have questions like that. Right, this is whereas, there are places that hyper-focus regionality.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's great.
Would you open your own restaurant one day? Is that?
I've nearly left law twice and to pursue food in some form or fashion. I wouldn't have opened up a restaurant because I think that it's a brave endeavor to do that. But I was thinking more about street food and doing things with street food and airstreams and all that sort of stuff.
And what kind of cuisine do you think it would be if you did go down that path?
I think it's really important to give people nutritious food that's affordable, right? And if you look at and no disrespect to Deliveroo and Talabat and all these delivery apps, but when you look at what indexes and does really well, at least by way of popularity on these apps, it's things like burgers and all this sort of stuff. And actually what we need to be doing more as society is going, hey, this is vegetable forward and it's under a certain price point, like 20 dirhams. So keep the price point low and aggressive and say we need to be able to give people nutritious food, that's good for them at an affordable price point. And that was really what I was aiming to do, was to have two things that I sell out of an Airstream below £5. That was the ambition. Impossible, very likely, but that's really the ambition.
The dream. Could you do? Are you still thinking about doing this, or is it
out? No. I think I'm too old now.
You're not.
No one is too old for anything.
I wanted to know because Liam is like our number one fan of Nourish.
Yes.
I've come to collect my award, by the way. That's why I'm here.
We've got it for you. Track. I hope you polished it.
Yeah, he's in the corner.
Whenever you message and you're like, I really liked this sentence or what you said here, it's really meaningful to know that you listen and you appreciate what we're doing. So thank you.
No,
thank you.
I wanted to know, who would you like to have on the podcast? Like, who would you like to hear?
You haven't seen yet.
Who should be interviewed
or heard?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, so I was actually going to recommend James, but you've just had him on the podcast. But I think there's now this up and coming community of other podcasters within the city where I think it would be good to kind of chat to each other because you do have that kind of unique perspective. I would have encouraged other food writers, etc., as well, because I think a lot of what you guys do on the show here, which is important, is suppliers, chefs, things like that. Those are very vertical, but then just have that kind of horizontal cut across for people who look at those things differently. Those were kind of the two ones that stood out to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And before we tuck in, we will ask you the question.
See, you had to remember.
I know that this is a running gag.
It is a running gag. I'm sorry. But yeah, what is it that nourishes your soul?
So I knew this question was coming. I gave this one. Thank you for asking, Devina.
You've been thinking about this for years.
I've been thinking about this for years. I was up at midnight toiling away. I was just in Singapore last week, and I was also thinking a bit about why I got into this food writing malarkey in the first place. I believe that life is experiential, and it's an experiential thing, and it's a sentient thing, and that's important to me. As I was walking around Singapore at like 11 o'clock at night and just taking photos and looking at just this city that's never seems to sleep and it's still buzzing, that taking that kind of time out for yourself to go and experience the world and see it firsthand. This is why I started food writing, because I was busy flying around the world for meetings, eating club sandwiches out of hotels and that sort of stuff. And I wasn't walking around Kuala Lumpur. I wasn't walking around Paris or enjoying these kinds of things in life. And I think when we get to the end of our days, we need to sort of look back and go, what is it that we kind of did? And did we manage to see the world? And did we manage to kind of enjoy these things? And so that's a very long way of saying the thing that nourishes my soul is to really to go out there and experience the world and see it firsthand and enjoy it and just get the texture of what life is like out there and experience other cultures, and to bring other people with you. So sometimes I like doing those things on my own. Sometimes I'll text my wife and say, I really wish you were here, right? Because I want you to see this too. And I want that to be a thing that we can do together. And so, yes, life is a sentient thing, and that's what nourishes my soul.
Oh, I love that.
Lovely. Yeah. Well
Thank
thought
you.
out. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Eat.
Now
Yeah,
we
eat.
Okay.
Do you want me to be mother?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Can
My
we?
my mother would not let me. She'd be like, didn't
Okay,
you
thank you.
get on her plate?
Right.
Tiff
done.
is like, I want
She's
to
like, I
begin.
want to eat.
Can we
not
please?
play that as a blooper? Shall I? Or I will kill you.